Good evening, everybody. My name's Jamie Gold, and tonight I'm going to be showing you how to make what we call the Shad Slayer. This is an imitation or knockoff, if you will, of the Shad Killer, but by making it yourself, it's got a few advantages. One of them is that you can make it with a lead-free jig head for environmental reasons. Also, you can tie them in several different sizes, and the sizes I like are the 1/8 inch or 1/8 ounce, the 1/16 ounce, and the 1/32 ounce. And in particular for the fly fishing audience, the 1/32 ounce is great because you can actually cast that on a fly rod with your sinking line, and that's very effective to fish with on a fly rod. So there are the jig heads that you can use. Also, you can get mylar tubing. I like the medium size. And you can get it in several different colors. The black, the pearl, there's an orange here. I've also used green, chartreuse, whatever colors that you happen to like. So, and then another advantage then with doing on your own are the colors. And so what I like to use, since they're lead-free jig heads, I like to use the vinyl jig head paint, which you see in front of me here, that you can get from CS Coatings. And that seems to stick really well to the lead-free jig heads, much better than a powder coat paint. And what I like to do then is I'll use white as a base color or base layer, and then there are a couple of other different colors I like. There's a hot pink, a black, a green chartreuse, red, and a blaze orange. And you can get different colors as well depending on what you like. But if you're going to use this, the vinyl paint, you do need to get some paint thinner. Because you're going to have to thin it out a little bit. It'll dry a little bit as you have it, so you do want some paint thinner. And then the last component I like for the paint is you can get a seal coat for it. And that seals in the paint, so it makes it a little more durable, and it adds a little extra glow to it, a little extra shine to it, which I happen to like. So, and then a couple other things I like to use, a drying rack here, because I like to tie up or paint a bunch of them all at once. I use a pair of pliers to dip with, and then also I'll use some Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails to coat the thread when I'm finished tying. So what I'd like to do now then is I'd like to show you how I actually dip them in the paint. I have one here that I've already done the white undercoat, and now I want to do a red top coat on it. So what I do is, this is the red paint. I've already added the thinner to it. And so what I would do then is stir it, because you want to mix the thinner into it, plus get some of the, it'll sort of concentrate at the bottom a little bit. And so you want to make sure that you stir that real well. I found that just get yourself a, a bag of chopsticks, and you can break those in half, and they work very well as stirrers. All right, so we have that stirred up. Then you take the jig head and you grab it at the bend of the hook with the pliers, okay? And then what you do is go ahead and dip that into the paint. And down really to the end of the collar is really what you want to, at least what I like to dip it into. Then you let that drain into the jar. You don't want to waste any of the paint. And then once you start to get that string, you want to just scrape that off a little bit, all right? And once that's done, then we'll go ahead and we'll transfer that to the drying rack. And then what we'll do is get yourself a little thin piece of cardboard, because what will happen is the paint will gather at the bottom of the jig head and it'll sort of distort the shape. Pull that little bit off of there so it smooths out the bottom of the jig head. What I'll do then is let that dry, and for the first coat you can let that dry for about an hour, and then you can go ahead and do the second coat of paint. Once I'm done the second coat, then I'll let it dry overnight, and then I'll put on the seal coat, because I want that paint really dry before I put the seal coat on it. And what I'll do then is I'll actually plan to do a whole bunch of them all at once. That's a more efficient way to do it. So I'll do 10 or 20 or 30 all at the same time, then let them dry, and then go back and do them. Now I'm going to show you how I tie the skirt onto these. So first I take the jig and I put it into my vise like that. Then I go ahead and grab my mylar tubing, and what I want to do is take it, hold it up to the fly, and I want it to go down to about the hook, the bend in the hook. I don't want it to go past that. but I want it down to about the bend in the hook. And once I have that measured, then I'll take it in this hand and I want to cut the mylar tubing. And then I take the tubing and I want to take the thread that's inside the tubing out. So now I have this empty tube of the mylar tubing, right? Then what I'll do is I will take the jig out of the fly, or out of the vise, and I'm going to slide this sleeve up over the hook and around the bend in the hook up till it's on the collar of the jig. So you can see it's up there just touching the bottom of the jig head. And I want to hold it there and I'm going to put it back into the vise. All right? Then what I'm going to do is take my thread. Now normally I would use thread that's the same color as the paint for the jig head, but tonight I'm just using white. But so for the red jig head I would use red thread, for the black, etc. All right? And what we're going to do is we're just going to lock that in place. All right? And so you lock down those threads, right? Right there. Okay. Just a couple of wraps, make sure that's good and locked. We're going to finish that then with a couple of half hitches. I usually use 3 just because you're dragging along rocks and whatnot, so it adds a little more durability to it. All right. Now we've got that in. So next what I like to do then is take the Sally Hansen's Hard as Nails. Just take it like this and we can rotate around so we can cover all of those threads, okay? And then the last thing that I like to do is I'm going to take out the jig head and I like to tease out these fibers at the end just a little bit to give it a little flair. If you're familiar with the shad killers, they have that. Just a little bit of flair. I think it gives a little more attraction to catch the attention of the shad. So you've got that flared out a little bit right there by the bend of the hook. One of the things then is you don't get the short strikes that you sometimes get with shad just by taking it to the end of or to the bend of the hook. You can also make variations of the jig head using some different materials. So one that I like is the marabou. So you can tie on a marabou tail and just use some Estaz. And again, you can use different colors. This one happens to be all white, but you can use whatever color combination that you like. But that marabou tail gives it really nice action. And then the other one you can use, especially on the really small jig heads, is these case micro jackworms. And again, you can get different colors, whether orange or chartreuse or black, whatever combination you like. And you don't actually have to tie on the mylar tubing. You just put the jackworm right on over the collar, right up to the bottom of the jig head. And these are both very effective. I've caught plenty of shad on both of these variations of the Shad Slayer.